the hidden framework behind every Buddhist teaching and why it changes everything.
Here's something that confused me for years about Buddhism, and I bet it's confused you too. You walk into a temple, and people are bowing before statues, chanting, offering flowers. It looks like religion. Then you read a Buddhist text, and suddenly you're diving into concepts about existence and consciousness that feel more like philosophy than faith. And then someone tells you it's actually a way of life, a practice. So which is it? Because it can't be all three, right? Well, here's where it gets fascinating. That confusion you're feeling isn't a bug in Buddhism. It's actually the feature. And understanding why might completely change how you approach your own spiritual journey or self-development practice. The Buddha actually gave us a blueprint for cutting through this confusion, but most people miss it because they're too busy trying to categorize what Buddhism is instead of understanding what it does. And what it does comes down to a deceptively simple framework called the Four Noble Truths. Now, before you think this is just another explanation you've heard before, stay with me, because the way these truths function reveals why Buddhism refuses to fit into neat categories and why that matters for anyone interested in personal transformation. The first truth acknowledges something we all experience but rarely examine properly. Life contains unsatisfactoriness. Not that everything is terrible, but that even our best moments contain this quality of never quite being enough, never quite lasting, never quite fulfilling us completely. This isn't pessimism, it's precision. The second truth gets controversial because it points directly at craving and desire as the origin of this unsatisfactoriness. We're constantly reaching for the next thing, pushing away what we don't like, and this constant grasping creates our suffering. The third truth offers something radical. This can actually end, not through belief, not through worship, but through direct experience. And the fourth truth provides the path, the practical methods to get there.
Now here's why this framework explains the religion-philosophy-practice confusion. The Four Noble Truths operate on multiple levels simultaneously. When someone bows before a Buddha statue, they're not worshiping a god who will grant wishes. They're engaging in a practice that cultivates humility, gratitude, and mindfulness. The ritual aspect serves the practical goal of transformation. That's why it looks like religion, but functions differently. When scholars dive into Buddhist philosophy, analyzing concepts of impermanence and non-self, they're not just doing intellectual gymnastics, they're rewiring their conceptual framework so they can perceive reality more accurately. That's why it feels philosophical, but demands practice. And when practitioners meditate and live by ethical principles, they're not following rules handed down by authority. They're conducting experiments in consciousness using the Four Noble Truths as a laboratory manual.
This is what makes Buddhism so difficult to categorize and so powerful if you understand it correctly. It's a complete system where the ritual elements support the philosophical understanding, which enables the practical transformation, which deepens the ritual meaning, creating a self-reinforcing cycle. Most traditions force you to choose, either believe and worship, or think and analyze, or practice and embody. Buddhism says do all three because they're inseparable aspects of the same process. So what's the takeaway here? If you've been confused about what Buddhism actually is, stop trying to put it in a box. Instead, ask yourself, what's the unsatisfactoriness in my life right now? What am I constantly craving or avoiding? Can I imagine what freedom from that cycle might feel like? And what practical steps could I take today toward that freedom? Those four questions mirror the Four Noble Truths, and they work whether you consider yourself religious, philosophical, or just someone trying to live better. That's the genius of the framework. It meets you where you are and transforms how you see everything. And maybe that's the only definition of Buddhism that actually matters.